My husband threw a surprise divorce party on our anniversary. The cake read, "Finally free." His friends clapped as he handed me divorce papers, smirking, "This is your graduation from being a burden." I smiled, thanked them, and signed the papers. While they partied, I signed something that would turn their cheers to dust. I stood in the rain at St. Catherine's Cemetery, watching Raymond arrange white roses on his mother's grave. His movements were precise, like he was performing for a boardroom. Even in mourning, he played a role, tilting his head, pausing before speaking, voice trembling just when cameras might catch it. "She'd be so proud of what we built," he said, his voice echoing in the empty cemetery. But there was no we. I built it all while he stole the glory. That morning started like always in our lavish penthouse. Sunlight poured through French windows, dancing on surfaces worth more than most people's yearly pay. I moved with grace, adjusting orchids in the foyer, checking my reflection before a charity luncheon. There, Raymond would claim credit for my creations from Julia's table's kitchen. The routine was choking me. Every polished move felt like a chain in a golden cage I'd built without realizing. I wasn't Julia, the entrepreneur who drove our restaurant empire. I'd become Julia, the wife, a prop to make Raymond look refined. At the cemetery, watching him act out grief for his mother, it hit me. This wasn't sorrow. It was another stage for him to show off his so-called depth. Our marriage? Just his biggest business deal, marrying me to build his empire while claiming my vision as his own. My father Logan's warnings came rushing back. 3 years ago, in his study smelling of leather and whiskey, he'd pushed for a prenup, 65% of assets if Raymond divorced me or cheated. His rough hands clutched his glass as he said, "Julia, men like him chase opportunity, not love. Sign this." At 26, I thought he was paranoid. I trusted Raymond, believed in our fairy tale. Dad's caution felt like an insult, as if I couldn't spot real love. The night before our wedding, in my childhood room surrounded by silk, I wanted to review the prenup. By morning, it was gone. Raymond laughed it off with that charming grin I fell for at a wine tasting. "Lawyers and their papers," he said, fixing his tie with care. "Don't worry, darling. We've got forever to figure it out." Forever tasted sour now as I watched him align the roses perfectly. I was naive to think a man who planned every word, every gesture, would leave my financial security to chance. That missing prenup wasn't a mistake, it was his plan. While Raymond networked at fancy events and posed for magazine covers, I spent nights in Julia's table's kitchen with Marcus, our head chef. We crafted menus that made our restaurant a hotspot. I secured supplier deals for quality and profit. I studied feedback, creating wine pairings critics loved. Every idea, every breakthrough, every decision that built our success, I recorded in secret journals in our home office. Sustainable sourcing, staff training, seasonal menus that kept bloggers hooked, my touch was everywhere. But I stayed hidden. I told myself Raymond would eventually give me credit. Years passed, and I saw he never would. To him, I was just the wife who offered input, not the mastermind who built our empire from the ground up. The irony was sharp. While Raymond charmed investors and smiled for cameras, I built ties with suppliers who valued my knowledge. I connected with industry pros who respected my ideas, creating systems to grow our vision into a chain. Yet, in every article, Raymond was the star, the genius who built it all. In that cemetery, watching his staged silence, something snapped inside me. The woman who dimmed herself for 3 years woke up. Our marriage wasn't a partnership, it was exploitation, wrapped in wedding vows he never meant to keep. The rain poured harder, and Raymond shot a glance at our car, his face cold and calculating, like he was weighing whether to linger at a networking event. Even his grief had an expiration date, a moment when the act wasn't worth the effort. "We should go," he said, his voice flat, the fake tremble gone like smudged stage makeup. "The car's getting soaked." As we passed through the cemetery gates, his phone buzzed, probably business calls, restaurant review congrats, or investor meeting requests. He grinned at each message, smug, like everything was falling into place. But I was starting to see his plans never included me as a partner. I was just a tool to use, a talent to exploit, a reputation to borrow and toss aside when it suited him. That missing prenup wasn't just lost paperwork. It was the moment Raymond chose his success over my security, his ambition over my trust. The rain kept falling as we reached the car, but the real storm was raging inside me. We drove home in silence, Raymond glued to his phone while I stared out the rain-streaked window. By the time we hit our driveway, the storm had darkened the November evening. Raymond rushed inside, ignoring me, chasing whatever messages demanded his focus after our grim day. I walked slowly, my heels clicking on the wet marble entryway. The house felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe it was me. That moment in the cemetery had shifted how I saw everything, even our shared home. Raymond vanished into his study, claiming urgent calls. His voice, lively through the door, was never that engaged when we talked about our restaurant or future. I stood alone in our huge living room, surrounded by furniture we picked together, but it felt like his. The next morning, I headed to a supplier meeting, routine stuff Raymond never bothered with, too mundane for his investor lunches and conferences. I drove to the warehouse district, spending 2 hours with Maria Santos, our supplier since day one, going over quality and prices for winter vegetables. "Your husband doesn't get food like you do," Maria said, inspecting produce. "He talks costs. You talk customers, creating something special." Her words stuck with me on the drive home. Raymond obsessed over profits and metrics, but never the experience we crafted, the memories we built at our tables. That vision was always mine. I got home early, the meeting wrapping up fast. The house was empty, Raymond's car gone, probably off charming investors, claiming my kitchen innovations as his own. His phone sat on the kitchen counter, buzzing non-stop. He never left it behind, treating it like part of his body, always checking crucial messages. I glanced at the screen, tons of texts from someone named Sophia, marketing director. I didn't know her, though Raymond often met with consultants. The messages seemed urgent, hinting at time-sensitive plans. I grabbed the phone to call him, but it unlocked, showing his full chat with Sophia. My breath stopped. The texts detailed months of secret dinners at unfamiliar restaurants, weekend trips to coastal hotels he called business conferences, plans for a future where I didn't exist. My hands shook as I read their words, a betrayal so deep it felt unreal. Sophia mocked that naive little wife who knew nothing. Raymond bragged about the prenup being gone, thinking I'd signed away my rights 3 years ago. They plotted his divorce like a business deal, all strategy and logistics. The phone slipped from my hands, crashing on the counter. The sound echoed like a gunshot in our empty house. I stared at the glowing screen, his lies laid bare, and something broke inside me. I'd always been sharp, reading people and situations to build our business. But I'd been blind to the man I trusted, who was plotting my ruin while I built his empire. That night, Raymond came home, apologizing for forgetting his phone and mumbling about last-minute client meetings. I waited until he slept, then slipped into his study. The room smelled of leather and cologne, lined with awards and photos praising his so-called genius. I'd never snooped through his papers before. I thought our marriage was built on trust. But trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I searched his file cabinets and desk drawers with care. Raymond was obsessively organized, everything neatly labeled. Financial records filled the bottom drawer of his old mahogany desk, detailing our business and investments. Then, behind those files, in a hidden panel I found by chance when the drawer jammed, I saw it, the prenup my dad had pushed for, with only Raymond's signature. My name was missing, just as I remembered from our wedding night. But that wasn't the worst. Manila folders held bank statements from secret Cayman Islands accounts, property deeds in Raymond's name alone, and letters about deals he'd never shared. At the bottom was a proposal to sell Julia's table to a hotel chain, complete with financial plans and timelines. Each page was another stab of betrayal. Raymond wasn't just cheating. He was plotting to ditch our marriage and steal the empire I built, leaving me with scraps from a prenup he thought was gone. I sat in his leather chair, surrounded by his lies, and felt my warmth turn cold and sharp. The woman who dimmed herself for 3 years saw everything clearly now. Raymond never saw me as a partner, just a tool to use until I wasn't needed. The empire he claimed was mine, built by me while he planned his escape. I photographed every document carefully, capturing every detail. Then I put everything back, leaving no trace. Raymond would wake thinking his secrets were safe, oblivious that I'd seen through his lies. The next night, I stayed late at Julia's table, checking inventory with Marcus, our head chef since day one. His skilled hands turned my recipes into art, not just business. "Mrs. Julia," he said, pausing over wine lists, "we all know you're the heart of this place." His words hit hard, heavy with truth I wasn't ready to face. "If you need anything, records, testimony, we're with you," he added softly. Looking at his honest face, I realized everyone but me saw Raymond's true colors. The staff had been shielding the restaurant from his bad calls, following my lead while tracking his mistakes. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. Marcus' words kept me up all night. Knowing the staff saw Raymond's failures and protected my work gave me strength. I wasn't crazy. Others saw his lies too. But I needed more than support, I needed a plan. For 6 months, I played a double game. Each morning, I woke next to the man betraying me, acting the perfect wife with skill that surprised me. At board meetings, I nodded as Raymond passed off my eco-friendly ideas as his own, snapping photos of his slides for my evidence. Investor lunches were like theater. Raymond led partners through Julia's table, describing my kitchen systems, training plans, and customer service standards as his own. He spoke so convincingly, I wondered if he believed the ideas were his. "Julia's been great at helping me bring these to life," he'd say, giving me a patronizing smile. Investors nodded politely at me, then focused on him, thinking he was the genius. Every fake smile I gave was part of my plan. Every nod kept Raymond confident. I acted grateful for the credit he stole, building my case while playing the supportive wife. The toughest moments were with Raymond's family, especially his sister Rebecca. At holiday dinners, she praised his brilliance, brushing off my work as mere help. "You're so lucky to have Raymond's vision," she said at Thanksgiving, her tone implying I should be thankful to watch his success. I smiled and nodded, knowing his vision was just my work, repackaged. I met Isabella Rodriguez at industry events, our chats seeming casual. She was a venture capitalist focused on restaurants, someone Raymond failed to impress for months. His shallow marketing talk bored her, and her interest in our business faded after meeting him. But at a restaurant conference, Isabella spotted me from photos with Raymond. Over coffee, she asked about details he never cared to learn. "Your seasonal menus at Julia's table are brilliant," she said. "The wine pairings show real skill in flavor and customer insight." I shared business ideas I rarely discussed outside our kitchen. Isabella listened, her focus sharp, recognizing my expertise. Our talks turned into monthly lunches at rival restaurants, where we studied market trends. Isabella probed about sourcing, staff training, and keeping customers loyal, things Raymond ignored. She analyzed restaurants like I did, seeking ideas to improve, not just admire. "You're a true restaurateur," she told me at a farm-to-table spot. "Most chase ambience. You get what builds lasting success." Her praise meant more than Raymond's empty words. Isabella backed real talent, and her offer to fund my future plans showed she trusted my skills, not just rumors of my potential. Meanwhile, Marcus Thompson revealed how the staff quietly resisted Raymond's leadership. They followed my systems, ignoring his bad ideas. "We document everything," Marcus said during a late inventory. "When Raymond contradicts you, we record it and stick to your plan." His menu ideas would ruin quality, so we note them and explain why they won't work. Patricia, our sommelier, kept detailed logs of Raymond's wine blunders, his ignorance of varietals, his misunderstanding of pairings, his cost-driven overrides of her expertise that ignored customer experience. The servers tracked Raymond's failures too, his inability to explain his menu, his unrealistic service promises, his habit of blaming staff for his own mistakes. Their records proved I was the real force behind Julia's table. They weren't just loyal to me, they guarded the standards that made our restaurant thrive. With my attorney, Robert, I started protecting my work, the unique cooking methods I created with Marcus, the recipes that set us apart, the systems ensuring top service. All needed my name on them. Robert filed carefully, proving my ideas came before Raymond's claims. My journals, supplier emails, training notes, and customer feedback showed I owned Julia's table's success. These patents will lock in your intellectual property, Robert said in a strategy meeting. If Raymond tries to claim them in a divorce, we'll prove they're yours. Each filing built a wall around my achievements. Raymond thought he owned an empire built on his vision. He'd soon learn it was always mine, legally protected from his grasp. I trademarked our signature dishes and service methods. If Raymond tried copying them, he'd find they were mine. Licensing agreements secured my systems, every improvement, every process, every training method was mine, not ours. As winter turned to spring, my double life grew sharper. By day, I played the supportive wife for Raymond's public image. By night, I worked with lawyers, accountants, and pros who valued my real skills. The two worlds couldn't have been more different. In Raymond's eyes, I was the helpful wife giving minor input. In my world, I was the restaurateur earning respect and investment. He never suspected my evening work, assuming I was busy with magazines or party plans. His arrogance blinded him, a mistake he'd soon regret. Raymond's errors were about to cost him dearly. But first, he planned his cruelest move. On a Thursday in late spring, a courier delivered a fancy cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. It promised a celebration but didn't say what we'd be celebrating. I thought the invitation was for another charity gala or a business milestone where I'd play Raymond's perfect wife. Its timing felt off. Raymond always planned our social events weeks ahead to maximize networking. This felt sudden, impulsive, not his usual calculated style. I chose a navy dress that looked good in photos and practiced my smile in the mirror, ready to redirect praise to Raymond's genius while keeping up my gracious act. It was exhausting, knowing the truth, but I had to keep playing until my legal plans were ready. Saturday evening was warm for late spring. I drove to our estate, expecting the usual crowd of investors and socialites at Raymond's events. But stepping inside, something felt wrong. The vibe was too lively, too personal. Raymond's friends and family filled our living room, their excitement aimed at me, not some business win. When I entered, their chatter stopped, replaced by sly looks and stifled grins that gave me chills. Rebecca hugged me longer than usual, whispering, "This'll be a night to remember, Julia. Get ready for surprises." Her tone had a sharp edge. She'd always resented me, jealous of my bond with Raymond and our success. Tonight, her face held a gleeful spark, like she was waiting for a show. I greeted guests, their enthusiasm feeling staged. It was like they were in a play, and I hadn't gotten the script. Their forced talk and odd laughter, their glances at their watches, hinted at something big coming. Then I saw her. Sophia stood by the bar, champagne in hand, her smile twisting my gut. She acted like she owned the place, nodding to guests who knew exactly who she was and why she was here. Her marketing director's story collapsed. Sophia wasn't here for work, she was Raymond's mistress, invited to watch my humiliation. The truth hit hard, and I steadied myself against a table. Every guest knew her. Their sly glances, stifled laughs, and fake excitement showed they were in on a plot to shame me. I was invited to my own public downfall, with everyone watching the spectacle. Raymond appeared beside me, his hand on my back feeling possessive, not loving. "Darling, you look stunning," he said. "I'm so glad you're here for our celebration." "What are we celebrating?" I asked, my voice steady despite my churning stomach. "Patience," he replied, his eyes glinting. "You'll see soon enough." The catering staff moved smoothly, refilling glasses, setting up for a big moment. Guests positioned themselves for the best view, their excitement growing as 8:30 neared. At 8 o'clock sharp, staff rolled out a cake. Its white frosting was elegant, expensive, like everything Raymond demanded for his image. But as it neared, I read the cursive words, "Finally free." This wasn't a celebration cake. It was a cruel announcement of someone's freedom from a burden. Rebecca raised her glass dramatically, silencing the room. Her face glowed with cruel joy. "Ladies and gentlemen," she declared, "tonight we toast new beginnings, the courage to shed dead weight, and living the life we deserve." Her words hit like punches. The room burst into applause and laughter, their excitement real now that the night's purpose was clear. I stood frozen among people I'd called family, realizing they were here to cheer my ruin. The cake, Rebecca's toast, Sophia's presence, every detail was planned to crush me while giving Raymond witnesses to his freedom from our marriage. Raymond approached, moving like he held all the power. He handed me a fancy box, matching the invitation's cream paper and gold ribbon. His eyes shone with cruel glee. "Julia, darling," he said loudly, "this is your special gift. Your graduation present." My hands shook slightly as I opened it, every eye on me. Inside were divorce papers, already filed, stamped, and binding. "This is your graduation from being a burden," Raymond said, echoing Rebecca's toast with maximum cruelty. The room laughed and clapped, his friends and family cheering his wit as I held the end of our marriage. The humiliation was deliberate. Raymond had planned every detail to break me publicly, ensuring everyone in his circle would remember my downfall. He cast himself as the victim, the businessman freed from a deadweight wife. Staring at the divorce papers, I expected to feel crushed. Instead, a surprising sense of freedom hit me, not the kind Raymond was gloating over, but something deeper, fiercer. He'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, too arrogant to see it. The papers felt light in my hands. Raymond stood there, smirking like he'd closed a big deal, scanning the room for reactions to his cruel show. He wanted tears, a breakdown, his useless wife shattered by public shame. But something shifted. The fake smile I'd worn for 3 years fell away, revealing someone stronger than the obedient wife he thought he could discard. No tears came, just a razor-sharp clarity. I studied the documents, noting the seals and dates showing he'd planned this for weeks, maybe months. Every detail, the public stage, the witnesses, the finally free cake, was crafted to crush me, timed to catch me off guard. Raymond misjudged me. He thought this humiliation would break me, leaving me desperate for scraps from his lost prenup. He didn't realize every guest watching his cruelty would never forget his viciousness. I grabbed a pen from a nearby table and signed the papers, my hands steady. Each stroke felt like a battle cry, though Raymond was too smug to see the threat. The room stared, thrilled, thinking they saw his victory over me. "There," I said, locking eyes with him, setting the pen down. "It's done." My voice held no pleading, no tears, none of the desperation he expected. Guests whispered, maybe shocked by my calm. Raymond's smug look wavered, but his triumph quickly returned. "I knew you'd be sensible, Julia. Always so practical," he said. Practical. Even now, he belittled me. The party went on, guests cheering Raymond's freedom from me. I moved through them, accepting their fake condolences with my usual grace, but inside, I was plotting, seeing my chance to show who was truly practical. As the night went on, I watched the truth unfold. Sophia strutted confidently, no longer hiding her affair with Raymond, talking about their home like she'd already moved in. Rebecca kept up her act, praising Raymond's bravery for ending our failed marriage. Her words dripped with jealousy she'd hidden for years, now free to spill out. Raymond's friends slapped his back, calling our divorce another smart deal, joking about his freedom to grow his empire. They didn't know that empire was mine, not his. By midnight, the last guest left, leaving behind glasses and cake plates from their celebration of my downfall. Raymond and Sophia vanished to the bedroom, their laughter echoing as they celebrated their win. I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the mess of their cruel party. The quiet let me process Raymond's true character and his calculated betrayal. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attack. He'd planned it for months, recruiting friends and family for his war against me. Rebecca's toast, the cake's message, the guest list, all chosen to humiliate me while giving him an audience. But he'd miscalculated badly. His need to gloat publicly created witnesses to his ugliness. Everyone who laughed at his cruelty would remember his true nature. More importantly, his public divorce stunt triggered the prenup he thought was gone. His spectacle, with witnesses and photos, activated the protections he believed he'd erased. I called Robert, my attorney. He answered fast, despite the late hour. "Robert," I said, my voice steady, "it's time to start our plan." The words felt powerful. For months, I'd played the loyal wife while building my defense. Tonight, Raymond handed me the legal proof to show who really ran our partnership. "I'll file the papers Monday morning," Robert said. "Are you sure you're ready?" "I've never been sure," I replied. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with messages. Marcus texted, checking on me after hearing about the party through industry gossip. Isabella left a voicemail, offering support with respect and care. Within hours, people who valued my skills reached out. Their support, compared to the cruel laughter of Raymond's crowd, showed me who truly mattered. My phone kept buzzing into the early morning as news spread through my professional network, suppliers I'd worked with, industry pros who respected my skills, contacts who valued my ideas. Raymond never got it. While he chased fame at networking events, I built real relationships based on trust and skill. Those calls gave me strength for the fight ahead with Raymond. He thought he'd won by humiliating me. He didn't know he'd started a war with someone who'd been preparing for months. As dawn lit up our estate, I realized the woman who signed those divorce papers was gone. In her place was someone who knew the difference between being ignored and being undervalued, ready to prove Raymond's empire was always mine. Monday morning came with a legal storm I'd planned for months. I sipped coffee in the kitchen, watching the sunrise, knowing Raymond slept upstairs with Sophia, clueless that his world was about to crash. Robert worked all weekend, syncing with banks and lawyers to process every document at once. The prenup, with only Raymond's signature, set the stage for the biggest asset split our state had ever seen. At 9 o'clock, as Raymond's day began, notifications hit, bank accounts transferred, property deeds changed, investments moved to my name with ruthless precision. 65% of our empire, the restaurants, real estate, portfolios he built with my profits, slipped into accounts he couldn't touch, protected by legal moves he never saw coming. My phone buzzed with Robert's update, transfers done. Accounts locked. Property filings complete. Investments frozen. Everything's on track. I pictured Raymond's shock as his routine was disrupted by bank officials explaining his frozen accounts. The prenup he thought was gone would haunt every call, its terms clear despite his belief it didn't exist. When he tried to run the business, the next blow would land. Every idea he claimed was mine, protected by patents I'd filed. My records proved I created them long before his boasts, securing my recipes and systems. My unique cooking methods, loved by critics, were patented in my name. The wine pairings that kept customers coming back? Mine, backed by emails and notes. My eco-friendly sourcing, praised in the media, was trademarked as mine alone. Raymond would find his intellectual property gone, leaving him with empty buildings and ideas he couldn't legally use. Everything that made our business shine belonged to the woman he'd shamed. Isabella called, interrupting my coffee. "Julia, the industry's buzzing. My group's ready to buy Raymond's remaining shares in Julia's table." The restaurant world ran on relationships and reputation, which Raymond never valued. News of our divorce and asset split spread fast, driven by respect for my work. 3 investment groups want in, Isabella said. Raymond's 35% stake is up for grabs, and he'll likely sell fast to save his lifestyle. Within 48 hours of his cruel party, Raymond's remaining shares would be mine through legal moves he never expected. His need for cash would force him to sell, and Isabella's group would hand me full control. The irony was perfect. Raymond's public stunt to ditch his burdensome wife triggered the prenup he thought was gone. His arrogance hid the relationships that would undo him. By noon, I was ready to take over Julia's table as its sole owner. The staff, worried about their jobs after the divorce, had been loyal through my planning. I wanted them to know their support mattered. I walked into the kitchen where Marcus was going over prep with the cooks. They stopped talking when they saw me, their faces tense, waiting for news that could change their lives. "I own Julia's table now," I announced, my voice clear in the quiet kitchen. "As of this morning, it's all mine." Silence hung for a moment before Marcus clapped, his calloused hands wringing off the steel counters. Others joined, their applause filled with relief, knowing the one who valued their work now ran the show. Some servers wiped away happy tears, showing how scared they'd been of working under Raymond's control. They'd seen him ignore their ideas, fumble operations, and dismiss their growth, things I'd always cared about. "What about Mr. Raymond?" Patricia, our sommelier, asked, more curious than worried. "He'll have to find new paths," I said. "His stake in Julia's table went to investors who gave it to me." The staff shared looks, their frustration with Raymond's clueless leadership clear. They'd shielded the restaurant from his bad calls, followed my lead, tracked his errors, and kept our customers happy. Marcus stepped up, his face serious amid the joy. "Mrs. Julia, every person here knows you're why this place thrives. We've always seen who built this." His words, backed by the team's shared experience, hit harder than any award. They'd watched me shape every detail while Raymond took the credit in interviews and events. That afternoon, my phone rang nonstop, suppliers, industry pros, and contacts checking on their ties to Julia's table. Each call showed my network, built through years of hard work, was mine, not Raymond's. He never saw the weakness in skipping these relationships. While he chased fame at conferences, I connected with suppliers who trusted my quality standards, technicians who relied on my input, and marketers who built strategies from my vision. Raymond would learn his empire rested on bonds he never built. His image as a top restaurateur came from my skills and network. As the day ended, I sat in my new office, reviewing reports that showed my complete turnaround. The woman who signed divorce papers amid cruel laughter was now the sole owner of an empire built on my talent and ties. Raymond's cruelty had justified every legal move, handing his wealth to the one who earned it. An hour after my announcement, Raymond's car pulled into the lot. I'd expected him, knowing word of the ownership change and staff's joy, never shown for him, would reach him fast. On the security monitor, he stepped out of his BMW, striding confidently, thinking he still owned the place. His face showed annoyance, not worry, like this was a small issue he'd fix with his usual charm. He entered through the dining room, not the kitchen, always choosing flair over function. He stood by the hostess station, eyeing the restaurant like it was his to inspect. The staff ignored his usual demand for respect. Marcus came from the kitchen, his face calm but sharp, and briefly explained the ownership shift and its impact. Raymond's expression flipped from disbelief to anger to frantic calculation as reality sank in. "Where's Julia?" he demanded, his voice tight, barely holding it together. "I need to talk to her about this mistake." Marcus pointed him to my office. Minutes later, Raymond stood in the doorway, his composed mask cracking under the weight of his emotions. He'd always relied on charm to handle tough talks, but this was beyond his tricks. "Julia, let's talk sensibly," he started, his tone patronizing, like I was overreacting to the divorce. "Mixing personal issues with the restaurant isn't fair to either of us." I stayed seated at my desk, now mined through legal moves he never saw coming, letting him stand. "Sit, Raymond. We do need to talk, but our views on what's unclear differ." He sat, tense, across from me. "This restaurant is my dream, my vision for our future in this industry. You can't take everything I've built just because you're mad about our marriage." His words carried his delusion about his role in our success. I watched him, seeing his genuine belief that this empire was his, not born from my skill and hard work. Raymond, I said, my voice cold and practiced, this restaurant was always my creation. You were just the face I let the world see. My words cut through years of Raymond's lies with precision. His face twisted from smug confidence to panic as he realized our success came from my work, not his so-called genius. That's not true, he snapped, his voice shaking as he clung to his fake story. I created the concepts. I got the funding. I built the connections that made us. You got funding with my business plans, I shot back, pulling a folder from my desk with proof. You pitched my kitchen innovations to investors. Every menu, every process, every service standard came from me, not your networking. I spread documents across the desk, my handwritten notes, emails with suppliers from before he got involved, training manuals I wrote that he never touched. Raymond stared, his world crumbling as he saw his identity was built on my foundation. The truth wasn't just ruining his claims, it was shattering his view of himself. The menus, the supplier deals, the training, I said, I created and ran them. You took credit for ideas you couldn't dream up and relationships you never built. His phone kept buzzing, and he finally answered, hesitant. I caught Sophia's cold tone, saying she'd be unavailable now. The warmth she'd shown while planning my humiliation was gone. He hung up, stunned, as Sophia ditched him the moment his money and status vanished. Her true motives shone through, she'd been after his wealth, not him. Sophia won't call back, I said. Relationships built on greed don't last when the money's gone. That hit him hard, stripping away his emotional crutch just as my legal moves took his business. He sat, no longer the cocky man who humiliated me, but someone seeing his mistakes clearly. I pulled an envelope from my drawer, styled like the one he used for my divorce papers, a nod to his cruel show. I have an offer, Raymond, I said, setting it between us. With your finances in ruins and your ownership claims gone, I'm offering you a job at Julia's table. He looked shocked. A job? At my restaurant? Not yours, I corrected, using his patronizing tone from the party. It's mine. I'm offering you assistant manager, under Marcus, handling basic tasks and training. I slid the envelope over, watching him open it to find a contract detailing his role, pay, and who he'd report to. It was fair, but a total flip from the power he thought he'd always have. The pay's enough for a decent life, I said, but not the luxury you got from stealing my work. Think of it as a chance to learn the business you claim to know. Raymond stared at the contract, his face showing the shock of going from owner to entry-level worker. The man who mocked me as a burden was learning I'd carried him all along with skills he never had. He had two choices: work under people he'd ignored or face unemployment in an industry that now saw his lack of real talent. His hands shook as he held the contract, finally getting who the real brains were. He signed with a shaky hand, his once bold signature now weak. It felt like the end of my revenge, but it was just the start of something bigger and better. My first move as sole owner was reshaping the restaurant's leadership to reflect real contributions. Promoting Marcus to executive chef and part owner wasn't just business, it honored the talent Raymond ignored while stealing credit for our kitchen's work. Marcus, I said in our first meeting as partners, this ownership stake honors your real contributions to Julia's table, the menus, the training, the quality that built our name. You deserve this. His weathered face showed rare emotion. Mrs. Julia, I never expected this. Mr. Raymond always treated kitchen staff as just workers, not partners. Patricia's promotion to beverage director meant just as much. She'd crafted wine programs critics loved, while Raymond brushed off her skill, claiming her choices came from his direction, not her expertise. The servers, who knew my menus and wine pairings by heart, became certified sommelier assistants with real career paths. Their tearful reactions showed how long they'd waited for recognition of skills Raymond never valued. The transformation of Julia's table didn't happen overnight, but when it did, it was like watching a wilted garden burst into bloom after a long, nourishing rain. I'd spent years in the shadows, my ideas stolen, my efforts dismissed, all while Raymond paraded around as the visionary owner. But now, with the ink barely dry on the acquisition papers, I stepped into the light as the rightful steward of what had always been my creation. The changes I implemented weren't about flashy overhauls or ego-driven redesigns, they were rooted in authenticity, fostering a workplace where real contributions shone brighter than any hollow title or fabricated authority. Gone were the days of Raymond's iron-fisted decrees, where he'd bark orders about inventory systems he couldn't even log into or menu tweaks he'd cribbed from my late-night sketches. In their place, I introduced collaborative huddles, morning briefings where every voice mattered, from the line cooks to the sommeliers. These weren't just meetings, they were symphonies of shared passion. The air in the staff room hummed with energy, the scent of fresh ground coffee mingling with the faint aroma of herbs from the kitchen. Laughter echoed off the walls as servers shared customer anecdotes, and chefs pitched innovative twists on seasonal dishes. It was alive, electric, a far cry from the stifling sessions under Raymond, where his monologues droned on like a faulty exhaust fan, sucking the oxygen from the room. I remember the first staff meeting after the takeover vividly. The team gathered in the back room, sunlight filtering through the frosted windows, casting a warm glow on the mismatched chairs we'd pulled into a circle. No podium for me, I sat among them, notepad in hand, ready to listen. "All right, everyone," I began, my voice steady but infused with the excitement I'd bottled up for too long. "This is our restaurant now. What's one thing we can do better today?" Hands shot up immediately. Maria, our veteran hostess, suggested streamlining the reservation app to reduce wait times. Jamal, the sous chef, proposed partnering with a local urban farm for hyper-fresh greens. Ideas flowed like a well-poured Pinot, each one building on the last. By the end, we had an actionable list, and the room buzzed with a sense of ownership that Raymond's regime had never allowed. It wasn't just about efficiency, it was about empowerment, turning employees into co-authors of our success story. But the most profound shift was in Raymond himself. Oh, how the mighty had fallen, or rather, been gently but firmly repositioned. A week after he'd signed his employment contract, a document I'd crafted with the precision of a master chef plating a signature dish, he arrived at the restaurant in his new uniform. Tailored to fit, sure, but still the standard issue black slacks and crisp white shirt of our servers, complete with a name tag that read simply Raymond, server. No owner or founder appended. The irony hit me like the first sip of a perfectly aged scotch, smooth, with a lingering burn of satisfaction. I watched from my office as he stepped through the employee entrance, his usual swagger tempered by a hint of uncertainty. The kitchen staff exchanged glances, whispers rippling through the prep area like steam from a simmering pot. Customers who recognized him, and there were plenty, given his penchant for schmoozing VIPs, did double takes as he approached their tables, notepad in hand. "Good evening," he'd say, his voice a notch humbler than before. "May I take your order?" One regular, a sharp-eyed food critic named Elena who'd dined with us for years, arched an eyebrow. "Raymond? Is this some kind of performance art?" she quipped, her companions chuckling softly. He managed a tight smile, explaining the new role with as much grace as he could muster. But I knew the truth, this was sweeter than any financial victory, a poetic justice served on a silver platter. From the vantage point of my office, perched above the dining floor like a captain's quarters on a ship I'd finally commandeered, I monitored the security feeds. The screens flickered with high-definition clarity, capturing every moment. There was Raymond, wiping down tables with a microfiber cloth, his movements deliberate but unpracticed. Sweat beaded on his forehead under the warm pendant lights, and I could almost hear the clink of silverware as he restocked the side stations. Marcus, our steadfast floor manager turned mentor, guided him with the patience of a seasoned teacher. Like this, Marcus would demonstrate, showing how to fold napkins into elegant fans or balance trays without spilling a drop. The irony was exquisite. Raymond, the man who'd claimed to orchestrate every aspect of this bustling eatery, was finally dipping his toes into the real currents that kept it afloat. Marcus had always been the quiet powerhouse of Julia's table. With his salt and pepper beard and eyes that missed nothing, he embodied the earned respect that Raymond had so desperately mimicked. Their dynamic was a masterclass in contrast. Marcus led with quiet competence, his instructions laced with encouragement rather than condescension. Raymond, once the self-proclaimed king, now followed, absorbing lessons on everything from reading customer cues to navigating the POS system. It highlighted the chasm between genuine leadership and pilfered prestige. Marcus didn't lord his position over Raymond, he treated him as he would any new hire, with fairness, but without leniency. Standards are standards, Marcus would say, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos of service rushes. During one of our weekly reviews, held in the quiet lull between lunch and dinner, I leaned back in my chair and asked, "How's our new team member settling in?" The office smelled of vanilla from the candle I kept burning to mask the faint onion tang from the kitchen below. Marcus paused, stirring his tea thoughtfully. "He's adjusting," he replied, choosing his words with care. "It's a steep curve, going from barking orders about systems he barely grasped to actually executing them. But credit where it's due, he's improving on the basics. Yesterday, he handled a 10-top without fumbling the specials." I nodded, a smile tugging at my lips. It wasn't schadenfreude exactly, it was vindication, watching the facade crack and reveal the man beneath, forced to build something real. The customers' reactions added layers to this unfolding drama. Those who'd known Raymond as the bombastic owner approached his service with a mix of bewilderment and subtle delight. "Is everything all right?" one longtime patron asked me discreetly after Raymond cleared her plates. "He seems different." I assured her with a wink that all was well, but inside, I reveled in the shift. Some diners requested other servers, uncomfortable with the role reversal, their unease palpable in the way they avoided eye contact. Others leaned into the novelty, tipping generously or even snapping discreet photos when they thought no one was looking. "This is the best plot twist since that mystery novel I read last month," a young couple whispered to each other, their laughter bubbling like champagne. Raymond, to his credit, handled it with more poise than I'd anticipated. There were no outbursts, no demands for special treatment. Instead, he endured the invisibility he'd once imposed on the staff, the hurried nods from rushed patrons, the dismissals when orders were wrong. He was tasting the humility of real work, the kind that built calluses on hands and resilience in spirit. The man who'd stolen credit for my sustainable sourcing initiatives, who'd basked in applause for menus I'd designed in the wee hours, was now adding tangible value, even if it started with something as mundane as refilling water glasses. It was a small step, but in the grand tapestry of justice, it wove a thread of redemption, not for him, perhaps, but for the balance of things. As the months ticked by, Julia's table flourished under this new ethos. Revenues climbed not through gimmicks, but through the authentic experiences we crafted. Patrons raved about our farm-to-table ethos, the zero-waste practices that turned scraps into stocks and compost. And then, 6 months in, came the pinnacle, a nomination for the James Beard Award in the Sustainable Dining category. The envelope arrived on a crisp autumn morning, the foundation's seal gleaming like a badge of honor. I slid it open at my desk, heart pounding, and scanned the letter. It praised our innovative local sourcing partnerships, the intricate waste reduction systems that minimized our environmental footprint, all ideas I'd pioneered during those dark days when Raymond dismissed them as frivolous hobbies. The nomination letter was meticulous, detailing collaborations with regional farmers for heirloom vegetables and the implementation of composting programs that fed back into those very farms. It cited research from the Foundation's investigators, who had traced the origins of these initiatives straight back to me, interviews with suppliers, old emails, even sketches from my personal notebooks that I'd shared with a trusted vendor years ago. Raymond had paraded these as his brainchildren in industry panels and press releases, but the truth had a way of surfacing, like cream rising in fresh milk. Reading those words felt like exhaling a breath I'd held for far too long. It wasn't just a personal triumph, it was an industry-wide affirmation of the expertise I'd honed in obscurity, proof that Julia's table wasn't just surviving under my leadership, it was soaring. The ceremony itself was a whirlwind of glamour and genuine camaraderie, held in a grand downtown hotel ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers and floral centerpieces that echoed our restaurant's seasonal aesthetic. I arrived in a sleek emerald gown that whispered of confidence reclaimed, flanked by Marcus, now promoted to executive chef, and Patricia, our beverage director whose wine pairings had become the talk of the town. Our table was a microcosm of true teamwork, no hierarchies, just shared stories and toasts to the future. As the MC announced the nominees, my name rang out, tied inextricably to Julia's table. Applause thundered, and in that moment, the weight of years lifted. Flashes from photographers captured our beaming faces, but my mind wandered briefly to the restaurant miles away. Back at Julia's table, the evening service hummed along without us. Raymond was on shift, under the watchful eye of our assistant manager, Lena, a no-nonsense force who'd risen through the ranks on sheer merit. While I sipped champagne and networked with fellow nominees, he was likely navigating the dinner rush, taking orders for our signature beet salad, recommending Patricia's curated flights, and clearing tables with the efficiency he was slowly mastering. The contrast was stark and satisfying, he toiling in the trenches he'd once overlooked, while I basked in the recognition for the very innovations he'd claimed. The award itself, should we win it, mattered less than its symbolism, a beacon illuminating the excellence that had always pulsed beneath Raymond's deceptions. In the days following, as buzz from the nomination rippled through food blogs and social media, I found myself in my office reviewing expansion plans. Spread across my desk were blueprints for 3 new locations, each designed to embody the sustainable ethos that defined us. One in the bustling city center, another in a quaint suburban enclave, and a third along the coast, where fresh seafood could integrate seamlessly with our farm partnerships. I traced the lines with my finger, envisioning open kitchens where diners could witness the magic, rooftop gardens supplying herbs, and community events fostering local ties. This wasn't mere growth, it was evolution, born from the ashes of betrayal. Reflecting on my journey, I marveled at the metamorphosis. The woman who'd signed those divorce papers amid Raymond's cruel laughter, his cronies snickering in the background like hyenas, that version of me was a ghost. In her place stood someone unbreakable, who knew her worth not through affirmations, but through actions. My revenge had never been about destruction, it was about revelation. I hadn't raised Raymond's so-called empire, I'd simply peeled back the layers to reveal it had always been mine. By reclaiming what I'd built, brick by metaphorical brick, I'd stepped into the spotlight that was rightfully waiting. Yet, even in victory, there was a quiet humanity to it all. Glancing at the security monitor one last time that evening, I saw Raymond in the dimly lit bar area, restocking wine glasses with careful precision. The clink of crystal against shelves was almost audible through the feed. He paused to chat with a fellow server, perhaps seeking advice on a tricky pour, his posture no longer rigid with entitlement but softened by experience. The staff he'd once ignored now mentored him, their interactions a testament to the restaurant's resilient spirit. He was contributing, however modestly, to a business he'd never truly comprehended. And in that, there was a subtle grace, a reminder that growth, even forced, could forge something enduring. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dining room, I powered down the monitors and stepped out into the night. Julia's table wasn't just a restaurant anymore, it was a legacy reclaimed, a story of resilience that would inspire far beyond its walls. The path ahead was bright, paved with the authenticity I'd fought to restore. And Raymond? He was part of it now, in his own small way, a footnote in a narrative where truth had finally taken center stage. But let's rewind a bit, to flesh out the nuances of those early days post-takeover. The acquisition itself had been a chess game of epic proportions. I'd spent months poring over financials with my lawyer, uncovering the cracks in Raymond's facade, inflated valuations, skimmed profits, and a web of loans he'd tangled himself in. When I presented the buyout offer, backed by investors who'd believed in my vision from the shadows, it was checkmate. He signed, his hand trembling slightly, the bravado cracking like an overcooked creme brulee. That moment in the conference room, with the city skyline mocking his downfall through floor-to-ceiling windows, set the tone for everything that followed. Integrating the changes required finesse. I didn't fire anyone loyal to Raymond, instead, I won them over with transparency. Town halls became a staple, where I shared the real story, not as gossip, but as context for our forward momentum. We've all been part of something special, I'd say, but now, let's make it ours. Morale skyrocketed. Turnover plummeted. Even the suppliers, long frustrated by Raymond's late payments, breathed easier under my steady hand. Raymond's first shift as a server was a spectacle I wouldn't trade for the world. He arrived early, as instructed, and Marcus walked him through the ropes. Start with the basics, Marcus advised, handing him a tray. Balance is key, literally and figuratively. Raymond nodded, his face a mask of determination masking inner turmoil. By midday, he was shadowing a veteran server, learning to anticipate needs, a fresh napkin here, a water refill there. Mistakes happened, a dropped fork, a misheard order, but he persevered, his ego taking the hits like a well-seasoned cast-iron pan. Customer interactions evolved into mini-dramas. Take Mr. Hargrove, a retired banker who'd golfed with Raymond. When Raymond approached his table, Hargrove's eyes widened. Well, I'll be damned. Serving your own patrons now? Raymond chuckled self-deprecatingly. Learning from the ground up, sir. What can I get you? Hargrove ordered the steak, medium rare, and later confided to me it was the best service he'd had in years. Humility suits him, he said with a grin. Not all were so kind. A group of influencers, regulars under Raymond's reign, snickered openly. From boss to busboy? Iconic. Raymond bore it, his smiles strained but professional. It was in these moments he felt the sting of invisibility, the way servers blend into the background, their labor the unseen engine of hospitality. He confided to Marcus once, during a break, I never realized how much goes into this. Marcus clapped him on the back. That's the point, Ray. Real work isn't glamorous, it's essential. As for the James Beard nomination, it sparked a media frenzy. Interviews poured in, each one an opportunity to set the record straight. The ideas were always mine, I told a reporter from Food and Wine, born from passion, not posturing. The letter's details, my farmer meetups, the zero-waste audits I'd conducted solo, validated years of toil. At the ceremony, the energy was palpable, clinking glasses, murmured conversations about trends and sustainability. When our category was called, and we didn't win, a worthy competitor took the prize, it didn't diminish the glow. Marcus raised a toast back at the table, to Julia, the heart of it all. Planning the expansions brought new thrills. For the city center spot, I envisioned a vertical garden wall, alive with herbs and microgreens. The suburban location would feature family-style seating, fostering community. The coastal outpost? Ocean views paired with seafood sustainably sourced from local fisheries. Investors clamored, staff volunteered for transfers, and even Raymond, in his evolving role, offered a tentative suggestion on wine storage, his first real input. In quieter moments, I'd reflect on the divorce that started it all. Raymond's laughter that day, echoing in the sterile lawyer's office, had been the catalyst. You'll never make it without me, he'd sneered. But here I was, thriving. Revenge, I realized, was a dish best served with success, cold, calculated, but ultimately nourishing. Watching Raymond on the monitor that final evening, as he polished glasses with newfound care, I felt a pang of something akin to closure. He wasn't broken, he was bending, learning the value of contribution over conquest. Julia's table had become more than a business, it was a testament to truth's triumph. And as I locked up, the stars twinkling above, I knew the best was yet to come.